Lamar Jackson and Matthew Stafford just lost in the playoffs. Brock Purdy didn't lose in the playoffs this weekend. That means he's better, right? What's up? Welcome to an early edition of the Best 49ers show. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Ryan G. Hensely. We've all been watching playoff football, the Niners included, and there are trends. The league is constantly evolving, and you have to keep up. Otherwise, you go 6-11 and you sit at home and watch the games with everyone else. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
You have a really nice Giants hat right now. I like it. Would you say that's is that black or is it like a dark navy blue?
So one of my favorite hats, because I'm a hat guy, is the New York Yankees hat. But I'm not a Yankees fan.
No, you're not trying to rock the NY.
Right. So I got the San Francisco Giants version.
Yeah. That's pretty dope. I love it. Okay. I just needed to get that. If you're listening on podcast, just understand that Ryan's wearing a really dope Yankees version of the Giants hat. Okay. Now to football. 4 quarterbacks left. I think was interesting with these games. Niner fans really had a tough year. Brock Purdy took a lot of criticism, and people are sort of ready to pounce on whichever quarterback loses. Like, oh, Lamar Jackson lost. What a loser. Brock Purdy wouldn't have lost in the playoffs like that. Matthew Stafford lost. What a loser. Jared Goff, what a loser. So let's look at it in maybe a slightly less reactionary way. Looking at the quarterbacks who lost and the quarterbacks who won, it is kind of interesting that the last 4 standing are all like legit, not just mobile quarterbacks, but dual threats, guys who could run a zone read or a quarterback power. Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. What do you think of this trend in the NFL?
I mean, that's the direction it's going. I think if you go further back, right? Let's go. Who are the 8 teams that were there? There's Stafford is the only quarterback. Who else?
Goff. Pretty stationary. He didn't make it. He didn't win one freaking playoff game. Herbert can run a little bit, but not really a dual threat. He lost. Yeah. Jordan Love, not a dual threat. He lost. I'm not saying these teams lost because their quarterback couldn't run 6 to 10 times, but these guys. What's interesting about these quarterbacks is like they're not Tim Tebow. They're not runners. They just it's a part of their skill set that makes them tougher to stop.
Just makes it harder to defend, right? You have to respect their running game. It seems to be the trend. The thing, though, about NFL, it seems like trends come and go, right? So maybe eventually they go back to more pocket passers, but it just doesn't feel like it. Feels like that day is over where you can have a strict pocket passer, be a big threat to win the Super Bowl. But you never know. Trends come and go. You definitely have to have an amazing offensive line if you're not going to have one. But the teams like the Eagles that don't have tremendous quarterbacks, like I don't consider Jalen Hurts an elite quarterback, but he is a run threat. He has a tremendous run game, and they have the best offensive line in the NFL. So it seems to be the trend, the direction that the league is going right now.
I thought it was interesting in the 2 snow games that you had the 2 teams that won kind of approached it the same way. The Eagles and the Bills. So we have Jalen Hurts, we have Josh Allen, doesn't matter. We're running the ball. We could have and Josh Allen, you're a runner today. Both of those guys threw for about 120, 130 passes. Very modest. Really took their ego out of it and made their biggest impacts on the ground. Jalen Hurts ran for 1 touchdown. Josh Allen ran for 2. Jalen Hurts ran 7 times, and Josh Allen ran 10 times. That was really smart, and it gave their offense the ability to really stick with the run in ways that the Rams couldn't because they got Kyron Williams, and that's it. They're not really built to run the ball 40 times and throw it 20 times, but the teams that won can win that way. The Niners used to be built to win that way. And I think that's why they went and drafted Trey Lance, because that was part of their identity. Now it's not anymore.
That was definitely the goal for Kyle Shanahan at the time. Obviously that didn't work out. The Eagles are an interesting team to me. I keep looking at them and talking about them because to me that's kind of the model for the 49ers. Now, Brock is mobile. He's not going to run the ball like Jalen Hurts does. But the Eagles are the complete team, right? They don't have the quarterback, the elite superstar quarterback like the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and what Jaden Daniels appears to be emerging as. But they have a tremendous defense. the best offensive line in the game. They are the complete team. And to me, that's what the 49ers model has to be moving forward, with Brock Purdy as their quarterback. He's in that range to me with Jalen Hurts. Like, he's in that level of quarterback. Like, they don't play the same style, but neither one of them is elite. They're both good. So what do you have to do in order to get far in the playoffs with a quarterback that's good but not elite? You have to build a tremendous team around them. The Eagles are going to be a problem for the 49ers moving forward because of how good their offensive line is and how much work the 49ers need to do with their offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how the league has evolved in terms of offense. So the Shanahan offensive scheme took over, and it was just so effective for years. This year, it wasn't as effective, and none of the remaining teams are running that scheme. And I think what that scheme does so well, I mean, the shifts in the motions kind of get defenses to miscommunicate, but essentially what they want to do is play action and hit you over the middle in that 15 to 20 yard range. And it's like, if you have Christian McCaffrey, you can get defenses load the box, single high safety. You can really go to work on that area of the field. And they did for a long time. I think a lot of defenses have realized, dude, just play too high, take away that play action pass, and live with the results in the run game. And I think a lot of the best teams have realized, okay, you guys are going to play two high safeties. We're going to run the ball a lot. And our quarterback's going to be involved. And the teams that can do that and like really, really, really commit to the running game with all 11 players on offense, hard to stop. That's kind of what Philly has. Their quarterback is decidedly mediocre. Really not good. I mean, what does he do? He throws little short passes and the occasional bomb, and he runs. He doesn't throw over the middle. He doesn't throw intermediate, and they win.
Yeah.
I still think that Trey Lance could do what Jalen Hurts does on that team. I mean, stand in the middle of the pocket for 5 seconds and look at the field or run. I mean, I think a lot of quarterbacks could do that. Big guys who are strong can break tackles.
We brought up the intermediate passing. Like, that's something that all these teams are doing now, right? Because of the two high safeties, that's what they're doing. It's dink and dunk, it's run game, or it's the deep shot. With the 49ers, they're trying to do things a little different, where Brock kind of lives in that intermediate areas, particularly this year. That's why he averaged such a high, yards per throw, yards per attempt in his throwing. He targets the intermediate area, but he honestly would have done probably better had he taken more dump offs this year. Patrick Mahomes is a perfect example. When he first came into the league, he was going deep on a regular basis, and teams just said, no, not no more. We're going to back off two high safeties. And they're like, fine, we'll take everything up underneath. And that's what they've been doing. It's not that Patrick Mahomes can't go deep. That's what's annoying about a lot of people when they reference the yards per attempt. They're like, oh, look at this yards per attempt. That means he's the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. And no, it's not really. That's not what it is. It just means that's what he's targeting, more regularly.
And remember, early in the season, or pretty much the whole season, there was that trend. Well, how come? Where's the play action in the Niners offense? Why aren't they calling? They used to call play action so much, and they're great when they run. This year, they were way down. Well, if you don't have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, defenses aren't going to freak out when you fake the handoff, and they're going to play too deep and say, yeah, Jordan Mason's really good, but we're more afraid of your receivers. So we're going to play too deep and try to take away your play action game. And it worked.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting how teams, like, all of a sudden an offensive coordinator like Cliff Kingsbury looks like he's kind of in vogue. So if you're going to play too deep, then I'm going to screen you to death. I'm going to zone read, RPO you to death. And I think the Eagles do similar stuff. And that's kind of the natural counter to what defenses are doing right now.
What was interesting to me, too, is if you watch the Detroit Lions game, the 49ers versus the Lions, the last game that they played against the Lions, Kyle Shanahan came out with this game plan. And I don't know if it's because they had all these backups on the offensive line where they were like, hey, let's come out with this quick passing game that we ran with Jimmy the entire time Jimmy was here. And it was working in the beginning. They need to get back to that, especially if they're not going to have a strong offensive line where they just focus on the quick passing game in the yak, because Brock's not going to take the top off on a regular basis. The intermediate has been dangerous for him. That's where most of his interceptions come from, the middle of the field in the intermediate area. I think they need to give Brock the Jimmy G offense and just put those weapons around him. Of course, build the offense line as much as you can, but you could tell a big difference in that game. He was getting that ball out quick. I think because of the backups at the offensive line, but the reality is your starters aren't very good either. So you need to have that quick passing game even when the starters are there. I think Kyle needs to get back to that in the yak.
Okay, another trend that I thought was really interesting. Both of these games came down to yesterday on Sunday, were played in the snow, and it really changed the whole complexion of the competition. I mean, it really came down to which team was better suited to adapt to awful conditions, and the teams that did won. And it was just the teams that didn't turn the ball over, the teams that did less, that allowed the other teams to make mistakes. And that just makes me think of the Niners. I mean, when they've gone to the Super Bowl, they've been the number one seed both times. They've been able to play in Santa Clara in January, which it might rain, it might not. It's not going to snow. It won't be super cold. And it hasn't rained for them. If they, I mean, God forbid, not the number one seed, they got to go to Philadelphia, that team that looks like it's not going away anytime soon, or Washington, where it's can also be really cold in January. They got a big problem. You have to have a bad weather offense that you can go to. And the Rams didn't. The Niners, I mean, I'm not sure that they do. We've seen that their quarterback really struggles. We're talking about Brock. What's his middle name?
Alvin? No, I don't know. It sounds like
I
Alvin.
don't know. Brock something or other Purdy really struggles in the bad weather. And I couldn't help but think that the Niners would have been kind of screwed in those conditions yesterday.
Yeah, man. I mean, the 49ers need to get back to their identity.
Brock doesn't have a middle name?
He's got no. Is that true? I feel like
true?
Allen or Alvin.
He needs a middle name. Sorry, I just interrupted you. Brock Purdy, middle name.
The 49ers need to get back to their identity.
Doesn't have one. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's crazy. Just BP.
I like it though. Okay, you're up. I'm done. I'm muting myself.
I think they need to get back to their identity, man. They need to be the run dominant team with a great defense that stops the run. And they got a long ways to go. I mean, from a running standpoint, they're not far off. It's really about the play calling, I think. They just need to run, play action. That's what the 49ers need to do. Or if you're going to pass, get in a quick passing game. The drop back passing game is not 49ers strength, never has been. It's something that needs to develop. And kudos to Kyle for trying to figure it out, I guess. But you have to draft the players in order to do that. So hopefully they get back next year. Just run, play action. That needs to be their identity. But the problem is they also need a really good defense that stops the run. And that's where they're the furthest away from where they need to be.
That's true. But I'm with you. Their identity used to be, yeah, we pay our quarterback a lot of money, Jimmy Garoppolo, but he doesn't have a real ego. And we would love to beat you running 40 times. And he's cool throwing 8 times in a game. That used to be the Niners' identity. And that was back when they had like Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert. And Debo. They would really pile it on with a bunch of running backs. Now it's Christian McCaffrey, and they'll give him 20, 25 carries, but they won't let anyone else run the ball. So they're not as run heavy as they used to be. And it's a nice thing to be able to do. You know what? Today, this is how you win. Because to me, in these playoff games, or particularly the ones on Sunday, it was clear in the snow. You can win the game on the ground and you can lose the game in the air. You're not going to win the game in the air. You should be throwing no more than 20 times. And those passes should be freaking safety first, just to stay ahead of the chains. Like, if you're going to win, it's going to be on the ground. And even a team that had Josh Allen understood that. They play in the snow all the time. He doesn't try to throw deep down the field. He threw for like 130 yards and had 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah, Kyle's game plan. What game was it when it was snowing like crazy? I'm trying to remember that we played this last year.
Oh, Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, he didn't have a good game plan. I mean, everything has to be straightforward. Whether you're running the ball or you're passing, it has to be straightforward. And Kyle didn't seem to have a good game plan for that. And Buffalo seemed to have figured that part out, probably because they play in it more often. But I mean, it's football. It's played outdoors, and in January and December, when it matters most, guess what? That's the winter. So you kind of need to prepare for it. I think moving forward, the 49ers need to have that 1-2 punch at running back. Christian McCaffrey is great, and one thing that may be encouraging, hopefully, even though it's more of the exception than the rule, is how good Derrick Henry has been at his age. Mm-hmm. So hopefully Christian McCaffrey can come back and be as good as he was. We'll see.
They're
But
built a
either
little
way,
differently, though.
a lot differently. Yeah, a lot differently. Yeah, 250-pound running
He's
back.
like, yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking about that. Someone DM me. I haven't gotten back to him. It was an interesting question. Like, do you think that Derrick Henry's ability to stay dominant into his early 30s bodes well for Christian McCaffrey? I'm not sure that they're related. One guy's 245 pounds and is kind of built to push the pile.
And they have a
The other guy's
300-pound
200
running back.
pounds and has an extensive injury history. Like, how many 200-pound running backs are good in their 30s?
And they have a 300-pound fullback. So
Yeah.
that's a little different also, right? Like,
And they have Lamar Jackson, who's like still
a threat.
drawing the most attention from the defense on those zone read plays.
Yeah.
They're still more scared of him than Henry, even though Henry's a future Hall of Famer. When McCaffrey's in the backfield, everyone's focused on him.
That's why I like the Christian and Mason combo, and we'll see if Mason even comes back. But Christian is a finesse running back. Our fullback is a finesse fullback, right? Like we don't have a 300-pound dude just plowing the road ahead of Christian. So like it's a different style. I really feel like they need to figure that out. Like I don't know what they're going to do with Jordan Mason. I don't know if he's realistically going to be able to come back. I would lean no. I would think he doesn't want to come back. Also, I think that's another factor that needs to be included in this. But they need that big power back, and I think they should upgrade the fullback position too. Like, who cares if your fullback can catch passes? I want a fullback that can just move dudes out the way. The 49ers really got to focus on it, and that's those type of running teams. That's what works in the snow, right?
Yeah. I agree. And I think what's interesting too, like in these games, these quarterbacks make all this money. Lamar makes 53, I think, 50 something, and Jalen's making 51. And you gotta have to like fight. Josh Allen's making 45. Play callers have to fight the urge to throw and justify the contract. Well, when we're paying this quarterback all this money, we gotta put the game in Lamar's hands. Like, no, you gotta put it on his legs. It's snowing. He's a great player, but you still, even with a great Hall of Fame quarterback, the game plan is run the ball as much as possible. And if you have Lamar, he only ran the ball 6 times. Run 12 times. Run 15 times. Jaden Daniels ran, I think, 16 times in their win over the Lions. I mean, you do what you got to do. Just saying.
Yeah. What was nuts, too, is in that third quarter how unstoppable Derrick Henry was and why they just didn't do that the entire time. Honestly, on that 2-point conversion, he was averaging like 5-6 yards per carry. I might have just tried to punch that in.
Why was Mark Andrews in a position to decide that game? Who the hell is Mark Andrews?
That was tough.
You could just run the ball.
He's going to have a tough few weeks.
Yeah. Okay, another trend. The remaining teams, all 4, all have really good offensive lines. Do you have their Pro Football Focus ranks?
Yeah, excuse me. Eagles are number 1. The Bills are number 5. Chiefs are number 7, and the Commanders are number 10. So all of them top 10.
That's really interesting. I think it's pretty clear that. So that's 4 things. I mean, that's 2 things. The dual threat quarterback, the guy who can sort of not only buy time and get away from pressure, but be part of the run game, enhance the run game if necessary, and a great offensive line that gives the guy as many unpressured dropbacks as possible, because we all know a quarterback's passer rating is going to be way, way higher when he's unpressured.
It's almost like, here's some groundbreaking stuff here. It's almost like the quarterback and the offensive line are the 2 most important positions on the team.
It's almost like that.
I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but maybe I'm just sharing this with you. No, I'm just being an asshole. It's just because it pisses me off when like Kyle and John have talked about their philosophy and how they approach a team building and how they prioritize pass rush second. Like this is their words. Quarterback, pass rush. That's how they approach team building.
And then guys who score touchdowns.
And then guys who score touchdowns.
Right?
Offensive line, where are they in the scheme of things?
I don't.
They're not there. They try to just get by with offensive linemen that they get later rounds. Like, enough with that ish. Like, this is not new. This has been the philosophy of legendary Hall of Fame coaches and football teams throughout the history of the NFL. You need the best freaking quarterback you can find, obviously, and you don't want to try to settle without it. But if you are going to have a quarterback that's not elite, and even if you freaking do, you need the best offensive line you could possibly put together to protect them and to help in your run game. It's pretty simple football, and the fact that Kyle's trying to go against the grain and John is going against the grain with this is one of the most frustrating things about this front office.
Also, what I don't understand, like they put so many resources into weapons and not the offensive line. Like weapons are secondary in my opinion, and they're easier to find. A good offensive line is really hard to put together, and a good offensive lineman is hard to find and develop. And when you find one, you keep them. But with weapons, I mean, look at the Bills. A big case for Josh Allen's MVP candidacy is that he doesn't have any all pros around him. True, but he's got like 4 good wide receivers. He's got 2 good tight ends. He's got like 3 good running backs. In a lot of ways, I'd rather have all of that than the highest paid running back and 2 of the highest paid wide receivers and the highest paid tight end. Like, it's good to have 1 or 2 of those guys, maybe 1, but you could get weapons. The Bills got weapons easily. They added Amari Cooper midseason just in case.
Yeah.
And they don't really need him. I don't understand.
It's funny because, like, what's the expression, the oldest expression in football? The game is won in the trenches, right?
Uh-huh.
What are the worst 2 positions on the 49ers this year?
O-line, D-line.
The trenches. Like it's
O-line, D-line.
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
And then you look at Adam Peters, who went to Washington and turned them from a 4-win team to a 12-win team. All he did was he added at least 2 starters in the offensive line in free agency, added a bunch of defensive linemen in free agency. Like, now they're pretty good in the trenches over there in Washington.
It's the key, and it's basic. It's simple. I mean, football at its core is just beating the man in front of you, and you need dudes to do it, man. It's not complex. But for some reason, the 49ers are trying to do things differently. And, we'll see if it ever works out.
Well, also, like, what's tough about the Niners is they sort of get it in the sense of they paid Javon Hargrave. It's just that the move is to, like, not miss on Javon Kinlaw. Like, the Eagles don't have to pay their defensive linemen because they keep drafting and hitting. Whereas the Niners, I mean, they haven't drafted a good defensive tackle yet. Right. No, excuse me, they drafted DJ Jones. But other than that, they inherited DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead and really benefited from them, in particular Armstead, for a long time. And now Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, those guys are journeymen. You got nothing at D tackle. So they need to add multiple D tackles this year and a linebacker.
And what's frustrating is most fans, myself included, have been screaming trenches for this is the 3rd year straight where I've been screaming it. Like, they got to go O-line. They got to go. Like, last year.
You know how many defensive linemen they've drafted the last 2 years?
None last year.
1. Beal, who was 2 years ago.
Yeah, Beal. Yeah, the last year going in the draft, my priorities, I had them listed out. Offensive line and D tackle. And they got neither.
They haven't drafted a D tackle in 3 years.
And I don't know. Are they scared because they miss on them? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they're awful at drafting defense. That might be their worst position. They've never tried to draft a center on this team since with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They got a good guard. They have not drafted a good offensive tackle. Depending on how you feel about the McTackles they've drafted, and defensive tackle has been awful. Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw.
Well, they got the 11th draft pick overall this year. There's going to be some really good defensive tackles and some offensive linemen available. And they're going to have to figure it out and pull the trigger. And hopefully they don't get scared and draft a running back.
Yeah, 11 is an interesting spot. It seems like a little high to draft a guard, which is they definitely need a left guard.
Hell, they need
might be a little low to take a truly great Trent Williams style offensive tackle. And I don't get the feeling there is one of those in this draft. I don't know.
They're going to get a pass rusher, aren't they?
See, that's the thing. Like, they could get the best pass rusher, and that'd be great. But again, if you can't stop the run, which they can't, when are you rushing the quarterback? Like, you got to go to Philly and beat Philly in the playoffs again. And you haven't beaten this version of Philly. The one with Saquon Barkley, you haven't beaten this version of Philly. It's all about stopping the run. The Rams are the best pass rush. They just got smoked. Yeah. And if you can't stop the run, I mean, Jalen Hurts, you can sack him 7 times and lose. Who cares? That just happened.
And the best thing you can do, honestly, the best thing you can do for your pass rush is get Nick Bosa, somebody on the inside that's a problem. You
Oh
know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And I
yeah.
like Leonard Floyd too. I actually think Leonard Floyd's decent. They need more depth there, obviously, or maybe somebody that could surpass him. But the best thing you could do for Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa is get them some dudes in the middle that are our problem.
I mean, really, all up and down the middle of the Niners defense. D tackle, linebacker, safety. You could be losing Greenlaw. Could be losing Hufanga. You right now, you got nothing at D tackle. You got Fred Warner. You got Malik Mustafa. That's the middle of your defense.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So 2 D tackles, 2 linebackers, and a safety. Unless you think Jair Brown is going to bounce back, he might. I'm not giving up on him, but question mark there. You got 2 guys you like in the middle of your defense. Yikes.
They got to figure out that the linebacker one's a big one because Greenlaw is a difference maker for the 49ers. And if they lose him, or I don't even know, even if they sign him, if he's going to be able to stay healthy, like that's a big problem for the 49ers. And especially if you don't have defensive tackles in front of those linebackers, that's even a bigger problem because now you're asking Fred Warner to come up and be a run stuffer, which he's really not. So, I mean, 49ers need a center, no freaking question. And I don't know where they're going to get that from. Maybe it's Hennessy on the team. I don't know. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe that's who they think he is. I don't know if he is or not. But they need defensive tackles. They need a middle linebacker. Yes.
They need a center. They need a guard. Yep. Their left tackle is going to be 37 this year and just missed 7 games. They need a tackle.
They need a tackle too. Yeah. Colton McKivitz.
Defensive tackle. They need a linebacker. They need a safety. I mean, good God.
They need everything. Your most reliable offensive lineman right now is Don Pooney, which is great, but like you can't rely on Trent. Honestly, like Trent's one of the best ever to do it, Hall of Famer. But can you really rely on him? And for how many games?
And you know why the Niners need so many things? I don't know if people think about it, and I think it was one of their biggest sins as a franchise under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and people kind of swept it under the rug because, yeah. They traded 3 firsts and a third for Trey Lance and got Malik Mustafa. I don't know if people understand that. They essentially traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys for 1 pick, which they used on Malik Mustafa. So 3 years worth of, he's a good player, man. I like him. 3 years worth of first and a third on a good young safety. That's a problem. And those could have been 3 Pro Bowlers plus a nice solid player. And instead they got Malik Mustafa. So yeah, that's catching up to him.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay, one more trend, and then we'll take some super chats. In the past few years, a big trend in the league was, it's kind of old school to get a coach who really doesn't call plays. If all he's doing on the sideline is a rah-rah type of guy, he's kind of not really a coach. He's just clapping. He's just doing nothing over there. You need a play caller. And a lot of these teams were hiring 34-year-old play callers with absolutely no leadership skills and doing that for a while. Now, last 4 teams, Shanahan's not in the playoffs. McVay's eliminated. LaFleur's eliminated. McDaniel didn't make it. Of the 4 teams that are left, there's 1 play caller who's a head coach, Andy Reid, one of the greatest of all time. And, Niner fans, we think of Bill Walsh, also play caller, one of the greatest of all time. But Sirianni does not call plays. Dan Quinn called plays when he was a coordinator, does not call the defensive plays in Washington. Their defensive coordinator, Joe Witt, does. And then Sean McDermott, a really accomplished defensive coordinator, does not call the defensive plays for the Buffalo Bills. He lets their defensive coordinator call it. So I think that's an interesting trend. Guys who can call plays choosing not to call plays unless they're literally one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I see the thing is you can be a play caller and a good leader, but do you have the time to do both during the game, right?
Only one guy apparently does.
Yeah, Andy.
And he has an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, right. And Kyle does now too, supposedly. So we'll see how that goes. It's like a head coach and an offensive coordinator are very demanding roles on the team, especially in game. Like that's one thing when you're watching these teams is the coaches that are not play callers, they have a lot more time and freedom to focus on everything that's going on the sidelines in the game. And I think that's a huge plus. I'm not against play callers being head coaches, but you're going to have to find the balance. Doesn't feel like Kyle has that balance, honestly, because every time you see him, he's looking in his play sheet. He doesn't seem to be involved like in anything else that's going on.
Also, game management is his biggest issue.
Yeah,
well,
I would.
One of them.
I think like if I had to choose, like, hey, get a new head coach and keep Kyle's offensive coordinator, or get a new offensive coordinator and keep Kyle's head coach, I would choose to keep Kyle as the offensive coordinator. I think that's what he's better at than being the head coach, being the leader, being the game manager. I think his play calling is better than that part of his game.
Can I blow your mind real quick?
Please.
Okay. So I was looking this up today. I could be wrong. Anyone wants to fact check me, please do. I looked this up on the internet, which is always 100% true. But his dad, Mike Shanahan, actually coached in the NFL for a long time.
I heard
he was a head coach of the Denver Broncos, Mike Shanahan, right? Yeah. Won 2 Super Bowls. This is true. 97 and 98. So he was a head coach from 95 to 2008, long time, and won 2 Super Bowls early on. He had been, an offensive coordinator, play caller for the Niners and when they won a Super Bowl. So he had some pedigree. Went to the Broncos, hired a guy named Gary Kubiak to be his offensive coordinator, and Kubiak called the plays. So Kyle's dad, when he won Super Bowls, actually delegated that responsibility to Gary Kubiak, who turns out to be a great play caller himself. Cut 10 years down the line, less than 10 years down the line, Gary Kubiak becomes the head coach of the Texans. Who does he hire to be his offensive coordinator? Kyle Shanahan. And what responsibilities does he give to Kyle? Play calling. Because Gary had the wisdom that even though he could call the plays and was really good at it, he's the head coach and he had bigger responsibilities. He had to look at the big picture and not just think, what's the next play in my play call sequence? His dad figured that out too. Mike Shanahan figured it out too. Why can't Kyle figure that out? Why is he so stuck in this little competition with McVay and LaFleur and McDaniel on who can be the best play caller guy? You guys are all head coaches and none of you guys made it to the Final Four this year. Why?
My mind is blown. I was not aware that Shanahan Sr. did not call plays.
Gary Kubiak.
That is interesting, man. It's a lot to do with, like, you see it in every profession. When you spread yourself too thin, you can't really be great at any one thing, and focus is key. Part of the reason I'm switching up my channels so I can have more focus. Like, focus is a tremendous it's critical for your success. If you're doing too many things, you can't be good at any one thing. And so, I mean, it speaks volumes in that regard. I would like to see Kyle have the focus, step into your head coach role. He's obviously not going to step down into an offensive coordinator role. So the option is step into the head coach role and delegate more responsibility. I know he's promoting, why can't I think of the guy's name? Slowick?
Clay Kubiak.
Clay Kubiak. Kubiak, Gary's son. See, like a little chain.
Man, be like your dad. Your dad let the young Kubiak call the plays. Why don't you let the young Kubiak call the plays? It worked for Shanahan the elder. That's how he got his 2 And the other thing about that. Okay, Denver. I was looking this up. So he won the Super Bowls 97, 98. He had Kubiak calling the plays. He was just a head coach. He also had a general manager who he pushed out after the second Super Bowl. Freaking Mike Shanahan became the king of Denver. He pushed out the general manager. They lost John Elway, and they were mediocre at best for the rest of their tenure. And now Kyle Shanahan's kind of the same. He's the king of Santa Clara, and he doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be the general manager. He doesn't need to be the offensive play caller. Like, he needs to be the head coach. But I wonder if deep down he lacks confidence. Like, I wonder if he thinks, man, if I'm not calling plays, I don't really have much to contribute. Because Dan Quinn doesn't have that. Dan Quinn's like, I could call the plays, but I'm a great game manager. I want to do that.
I would love to see him just step into the head coach role. The only thing about it, though, is, like, again, I don't think that's his strength. So that's the problem for me. Like, I don't think that Kyle Shanahan he's a better offense coordinator than he is head coach.
No doubt.
He's not a particularly good leader of men or motivator or game manager. Now, to his credit, maybe those are things that he can improve on and would be better at if he didn't have the offensive coordinator responsibilities.
But that's the thing. Like, so we know that he's more of a play caller than a head coach. He feels more comfortable in the offensive coordinator role than in the head coach role. And we've seen other good coaches go the other direction. I mean, Robert Saleh became the head coach of the Jets, really good coordinator, really smart guy, delegated to Jeff Ulbrich. So other guys do it differently. Dan Quinn worked with Kyle, does it differently. And that's why this search for a defensive coordinator is so interesting, because it's not just a coordinator you're looking for. If Kyle really is just an offensive coordinator at heart, then this guy is also the head coach in a lot of ways, because the defensive coordinator is the guy who's providing the energy, the emotion. You watch Dan Quinn and Sean McDermott on the sidelines. Those guys could be calling plays, but they're not. After every series, they're on the field. They're high-fiving everyone. Maybe Kyle thinks that's dumb, but I think it shows the players that you're engaged. You're in the game. You're not somewhere else thinking about something else, talking to someone else, like right there. I think that matters. And so that's what Robert Saleh really does provide. We've seen him do it for the 49ers. He set that culture, that energy. The Niners used to be the most energetic, hardest playing defense in the league. Now they're really not. So I think that's why, to me, Robert Saleh is really perfect for them in terms of he's the head coach they need, while Kyle Shanahan's their offensive coordinator.
I think that's a great point. And when I figured we were going to be talking about Saleh, I didn't even think about that. The reason why I think Saleh is so crucial for the 49ers' success is because, along with Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan is about to enter year 9. Sean McDermott has an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan are the only two coaches, the longest tenured coaches in the NFL who have not won a Super Bowl. Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan. McDermott actually has them by a month. So Sean's trying to go win his first one. Besides that, it's Kyle Shanahan. But the point that I was making is that they're both entering year 9. McDermott has Josh Allen, who probably will be a Hall of Fame quarterback one day. He is an elite NFL quarterback. Kyle doesn't have that yet in Brock. I'm beyond, like, Brock's a good quarterback. He's not Josh Allen. So for the 49ers, in order to win a Super Bowl,
who has a higher EPA? Who had a higher QBR? Just kidding.
My bad. You're right.
Sorry.
But, so for the 49ers to win a Super Bowl, they need to have a great defense. They can't afford to F around this coming season with an unknown. In my opinion, like, it's year 9, dog. Like, you need an elite defense. Saleh has proven that he can put together a great defense for the 49ers if you get him the pieces. If you guys find some defensive tackles, Robert Saleh gives me the most peace of mind when it comes to how is this defense going to look this coming season. It's not Brandon Staley. It's not Nick Sorensen. It's not any of these dudes. Get Robert Saleh. Don't mess around. And yeah, a lot of people are like, hey, let's not go back. Let's not go backwards. And yeah, they're not in a position to do that. They can't have another blunder like Nick Sorensen, another unproven guy, step in and be the defensive coordinator, or Mr. Cat Cow, who I don't trust as a leader of anything. I think they got to get Robert Saleh, dude. To me, it's crucial that the 49ers defense gets back to their identity, and I think Robert can do it.
Think so? All right, well, here's the problem, though. He's a good coach, and it seems like he might become the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. He was there for 3 seasons, I believe. He knows the owner. Also, everyone seems to look at Saleh as a guy who kind of got screwed by the Jets because everyone fails there. So if Saleh doesn't come to the Niners, possible. Jeff Ulbricht's out. He's now with Atlanta, back in Atlanta as their defensive coordinator. I think there's a very real possibility that Brandon Staley will become the next defensive coordinator, because, I mean, if it's not Saleh, it's not Ulbrich. They're bringing in an outsider who probably doesn't run their system, which they tried to do with Steve Wilkes and it didn't work. I'm not saying Brandon Staley is going to work or that he's the best option, but it becomes like the path of least resistance, and I think the Niners could take it.
Yeah.
Your voice just went down.
I'm just sad. I'm just sad. That's all that is. Yeah, I just don't believe in Brandon Staley. Wasn't Brandon Staley part of this defense last year when they were the worst that they've been under Kyle Shanahan? Wasn't he supposed to be the defensive advisor? Like, what did he contribute last year? Like,
are we supposed to believe that he wasn't really helping Sorensen and he had all these ideas, but he was holding them back so the Niners would fire Sorensen and he could get the job, and now he's going to unleash his playbook that he had hidden in a Foot Locker?
The young, I forget the kid's name. He's Jim Harbaugh's coordinator for the Chargers, the defensive coordinator. Yeah, he turned that defense into one of the best in the NFL. Like, allowed the least points scored. Last year when Staley was there as the head coach and the defensive play caller, they were one of the worst. So Brandon Staley had one of the worst defenses with the Chargers. Then the very next year they turned around and now they're one of the best after he left. Brandon Staley was the whatever he is, the assistant defensive head coach. I don't know what the hell his title was last year for Nick Sorensen. And we saw how that worked out. He was part of that coaching staff. If the 49ers go with Nick Sorensen as special teams coordinator and Brandon Staley, defense coordinator, just switching guys around, I'm going to be pissed because I do not believe in that formula.
That's exactly what they're doing, right? It's like, oh, we're getting serious this offseason. We're just cleaning house and getting rid of our coordinators. Actually, we moved our defensive coordinator to special teams coordinator. We moved our assistant head coach to defensive coordinator. But we got rid of that bum Brian Schneider, so we don't play. And we got rid of Devondre Campbell too, so don't freaking mess around with us. But we essentially kept all of our friends because we're a buddy. We're a family. And Nick Sorensen's my cousin by marriage.
First of all, like Robert Saleh, I think he should wait. I don't think he should go to the Jaguars. I don't believe in the Jaguars, especially if there's bulkies there. Robert, if you're listening, don't go to the Jaguars, man. Come to the Niners. I will feel good about the 49ers and their chances next season if they have Robert Saleh as their defensive coordinator. If it's Brandon Staley and now Nick Sorensen's the special teams coordinator, I'm going to be freaking negative Nancy. I'm sorry.
Saleh would really, I don't know if he would save this team, but he would provide a lot of the things that they're missing. And again, if Staley were to become the defensive coordinator, all of a sudden he'd have to be on the sideline. Was he on the sideline during games? I'm not sure.
No.
Maybe he was. He wasn't.
He was in the booth.
So he'd have to be on the sideline, and he'd have to be the guy pacing up and down the sidelines and going onto the field and having to be held back because it's not Kyle. And it's clear that the Niners defense in particular has been sort of begging for this. They fed off of it for years. They don't have it anymore. They needed Steve Wilkes to come down and provide it. He did in his way. Sorensen was a wet noodle. Sorry to noodles and Sorensens all over the world, but that's what he was. And I don't think Staley's just sort of like a smiling Sorensen.
He's a wet noodle as well.
He's a wet noodle.
Here's the thing. Joey Bosa, not a fan of Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
His brother, Nicholas Bosa, plays for the 49ers. And I don't think that's going to work out. I think Brandon Staley would have been the defensive coordinator last year if it wasn't for that dynamic. I don't think Nick Bosa wants Brandon Staley to be his defensive coordinator based on the history.
I don't think anyone wants Brandon Staley to be their defensive coordinator. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Hey, can they go get Steve Wilkes?
he interviewed in Atlanta. Here's the other thing that's a little.
That's what I want to say real quick. Whoever they hire, if it's not Saleh, won't be as good as Steve Wilkes. That's my problem.
Yeah, that's annoying also.
Yeah.
But the thing about Atlanta, I think they interviewed like 7 defensive coordinators before coming to Old Bridge. The Niners have interviewed 3 dudes.
Deshae Townsend,
yeah,
Robert Saleh, and
Staley.
Oh, yeah. And then Kyle didn't even make it clear that he was going to have a full interview with him. He's like, yeah, I'll talk to him. Like, what, by the water cooler? So what's your vision for the defense, huh? Cool. No.
He's literally the backup.
No one likes you.
Here's where the Niners are at. I feel like they're just like, if Robert Saleh doesn't accept when he's head coaching positions, he's our guy. If it's not him, it's Staley. That's their plan. It feels like that's their plan. Unless they're waiting for this season to end and more coaches to be available to interview. Maybe that's a possibility, but
if the Niners run it back with Staley at DC and Sorensen at special teams, that's like peak F around and find out. Like that's like a 9 out of 10 on effing around. You really want to find out that you're as bad as you are. You don't believe it. You need to make major changes. You just won 6 games. You need to make major changes. And that's the change. Staley to DC, Sorensen to Oh, that's 9 out of 10 on the F around to find out meter. Just
And it
saying.
sucks for the Niners. Be great content for you if they actually went that route. So
I'm
that's
kind of hoping for it. Danny D says, wish the Niners build Purdy the same line Jimmy had. How about build Purdy the same line Hurts has?
That's the goal. Yeah.
I mean, the
They need
Eagles
to
are so good. I hate to get like fanboy out on the Eagles because they haven't won a Super Bowl. I mean, under Sirianni, but Becton was a freaking bust. They brought him over, put him at guard, and now he's like one of the best guards in the league. It's like that. Those kind of moves really matter.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The funny thing about Sirianni, the best winning percentage of all current coaches in the NFL, the most wins in the first 4 seasons. John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, Matt LaFleur, Nick Sirianni has the most, 52 wins in his first 4 seasons. So Sirianni gets on my nerves. I'm not a fan, but him combined with their general manager there, they're having a lot of success, and it's because they believe in the trenches.
And what's funny to me is let's say the Eagles win the NFC Championship game. Let's say they go to the Super Bowl and lose to Kansas City or Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, Sirianni's resume is looking very Shanahan-esque. Couple Super Bowl losses, a few deep Super playoff runs. But Niner fans think Sirianni's trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle's great, right?
Yes.
Because he went to NFC Championship games, because he went to a Super Bowl. So to me, Niner fans don't think Kyle's great because of where he's gone. That's just justification. They think Kyle's great because they want the next Bill Walsh.
Yep.
And to be the next Bill Walsh, you got to call the plays. So Sirianni, he can win as many games as whatever, but he's not doing it the way that the number one Niners head coach did it, so it doesn't count. It's not real. And at the same breath, can you hear that?
A little bit.
All right, I'll just stop talking. Go ahead.
Here's a funny thing about what Niners. Here's how Niners criticize Nick Sirianni. He inherited an amazing roster. Same thing they say about Jim. He inherited an amazing roster. Kyle Shanahan built this roster from scratch. Okay, fine. Let's go with that. Let's go with that one. Kyle's entering year 9. So if you erase the first 4 years of Kyle Shanahan's record, give him those first 4 years to build a team. Nick Sirianni still has a better record. So even after Kyle Shanahan built this roster exactly how he wanted it for 4 freaking years, Nick Sirianni still has a better record than Kyle Shanahan. So, I mean, the Niner fans criticize Nick Sirianni. He's getting results.
Yeah, and he's getting like similar results to Kyle, at least when Kyle's team was good. And Niner fans have no respect for him. And I think, again, Niner fans have no respect for Jalen Hurts either. But a lot of Niner fans love Brock Purdy when they're kind of similar, just in totally different styles. And I think, again, Niner fans want the next Joe. It's not just that they want a franchise quarterback. They want the next Joe Montana. And a lot of people look at Brock as like, well, he doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not the biggest guy. Neither was Joe. He's a lot like Joe. He's clutch. Like, maybe. But, and I think that's why there was a lot of pushback on Trey Lance. It's like, this is not what it's supposed to be on the 49ers. It's not the football we play here. We're under center. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think there's a little bit of that, whereas other teams are just, the Eagles are a little bit more flexible. Like, no, we want to be modern. We're going to have a modern football team, not a throwback.
Here's the funny thing, man. I've been noticing on social media lately with 49er fans is I feel like they're tired. And I feel like that's why they attack people like me that speak out on areas of weakness, or, hey, like, they're tired. They want that next Joe Montana. And then the guys like me are like, I don't think Brock's that guy. And then they get really pissed about it. And it seems like, you know that song? What's that song? Hold on. What's that song with the singer? He was for Bad Boys. Like, I don't want to know. Like, right? Yeah. He doesn't. He doesn't. I feel like a lot of fans like that song. They don't want to know if you're playing, if you're cheating. Just keep it on the low. Don't tell me. Right? That seems like what a lot of Niner fans are right now, to be honest.
Also, like, you can see on Twitter, they're just really like celebrating the demise of other teams, which to me kind of indicates that they know that the Niners have already experienced their demise. It's like, okay, well, everyone's dancing on our graves. Now it's our turn to dance on the Vikings' grave. It's like, yeah, that's fun for a day. But that doesn't change the fact that the Niners are in a worse spot right now. Boxing Fan Times 4 says Kyle don't care for having a good O-line. 2024 draft was the year to get OT. This draft, they should go for more skill players and look for O-line guys like Pooney, who played 5 years in college in later rounds. Thank you, Boxing Fan. Deshaun DeVoe says, who's actually related to Belle Biv DeVoe. He's one of the DeVoes. Says, I think you guys are misstating the trend. These quarterbacks who are in the playoffs have no physical weaknesses. Yeah, I like that. It used to be 10 years ago, like you'd have a running quarterback or a pocket quarterback, and it seems like now college is developing guys who can do everything.
I mean, if you look at all the elite quarterbacks, the only one that people try to go to is they say Burrow. He doesn't have a strong arm, but he has a much stronger arm than Brock, if we're being real.
Of all the older quarterbacks who had the career resuscitation this year, who lost early in the playoffs, who are you most impressed with?
Give me the question again.
Okay, all those quarterbacks who had good years, sort of like career revival years. You know who I'm talking about. The Darnolds, the Goffs, the Mayfield, the what have yous, who all lost in the playoffs this year. Who do you think was the most impressive in their loss?
Mayfield.
I think Mayfield's a sav. I like Mayfield, dude. He's a competitor. He freaking trucks people in the open field. Was it his fault or was it the center's fault in those botches? I thought he's a hell of a player. I think he's a hell of a player, hell of a competitor.
He played great, man. I like him. I think he's one of the top 4 NFC quarterbacks.
I think he's better than Goff. I think he's better than Darnold. I think he's a hell of a freaking competitor. Official BNA Music 88 says 2018, 2023, finesse back. 2025, tang back. The Jedi says Lynch got exposed by Peters. Lynch and Kyle need draft help person. I think they need a lot of free agency help. Their draft was pretty good, but their free agency. I mean, just look at both the Commanders and the Niners needed linebackers. Commanders signed Bobby Wagner, who's a freaking Hall of Famer. The Niners, well, you know who they signed.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why we think the draft was good is because they picked 31st and they drafted a wide receiver who was, still TBD. He seems decent. But when you pick 11, the expectations are higher, and you're not going to draft a wide receiver. And the 49ers have decent history of drafting wide receivers with Brandon Ayuk. I think it's TBD on whether they're going to, if they figured out how to draft. We'll see what they do at 11 this year.
Dennis McCrae says a great offensive line is a weapon. I mean, great offensive line, a great running back's a weapon.
What did Jim? I'm sorry, bud. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, the Niners kind of were. I mean, a lot of teams convinced themselves that running backs don't matter anymore. You can get them, you can, but the Niners went and got McCaffrey and put them on top of the NFC. Then the Eagles went and got Barkley, put them on top of the NFC, and all of a sudden it's like, maybe who's the next one?
I like Jim Harbaugh's quote on the offensive line saying that offensive line is the only position that every other position is dependent on to do well, and they're not dependent on any other position to do well.
Yeah. Their success or failure is up to them. The Jedi says Howie Roseman is light years ahead of Lynch. Lynch is always 3 steps behind. Howie Roseman is really, 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 really good.
Yes.
But yeah, there's no excuse for Lynch. HR says they didn't get it done during the open window. Well, that's the hard truth of the matter. Akovia says at this point they should trade everyone for picks and start all over, build from O and D line out. Why not? Because they're entering year 9 of their tenure and they don't get that. They don't have that luxury. That's what you do in year 1.
Yeah, that's what you do when you get a new coach. Yep.
Joey Lappin says Niners need to draft that DT Eric Shun from USC. Look at my face. Do I look like I know who that is?
I've heard the name Eric Shun, but I don't know who he is yet.
That's better than me. Jesus Jaime says there was good coaching. There was good coaching. You think Kyle Watson need to? Hey, agree with you, Jesus Jaime. Well put. Sean says Lamar needs to get out of the AFC. He was in the NFC. He'd have a chip already. Cold weather games against 2 Hall of Famers. Yo, can I say something kind of blasphemous? I think the Ravens need a new head coach, dude.
Well, here's the thing, man.
I'm sorry. They don't.
You
don't move on from Lamar. I think he's truly one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Maybe I'm wrong. 15.
Do you know the last 12 AFC Championship games have featured 2 quarterbacks? You know who they are?
Mahomes, Brady.
That's
Yeah,
the problem in the
that's the
AFC. It's like
problem.
I take like when I look at Mike Tomlin, I look at John Harbaugh, I have a little empathy for them because they're
But
going against two of the GOATs. It's
but
not
the thing
easy
with
to do.
Harbaugh is like, can we talk about him for a second? I mean, he's been the coach for like ever since I was in college.
Mhm.
He won the Super Bowl one time against his brother a long time ago. He's probably a three-time MVP at quarterback. Can't do anything in the playoffs with this guy. And I know Lamar's turning the ball over and he deserves a lot of blame, but it's like, dude, you went for 2 in the third quarter. You didn't have to do that. It's the third quarter. You didn't give the ball to Derrick Henry on the play. And the reason you're going for 2 at the end of the game is you're chasing that point that you didn't need to chase in the third quarter. I don't know about John Harbaugh, man.
Who'd he
I
lose
don't
to,
know.
Who'd he lose to? The Raven the Bills.
The Bills. It's true.
We'll see what happens with the Bills. They might go on and beat the Chiefs. Like they look like a team that could possibly beat the Chiefs. We'll see. It's just tough over
Is
there.
John Harbaugh really he's not a bad coach. He doesn't deserve to get fired, but like, is he really the best coach they can get for Lamar? Are they gonna hitch Lamar's entire prime to John Harbaugh and let this happen I'm not saying it's John Harbaugh's fault that they lost last night because Mark Andrews, Lamar, they turned the ball over, but if he's that good, you'd think he'd like find ways to sort of get him over the hump. One time.
I'm a big Harbaugh and Tomlin guy. I like both of them. I love their styles. I love their leaderships. I would be worried about moving on from those dudes, but I
just want to fire every coach.
I think
all coaches should have to switch teams every 3 years, like musical chairs.
And that's the thing, you know, like a lot of 49er fans are right there with you right now, right? Because it's fun to say Harbaugh needs to go, Tomlin needs to go. And in the same breath, they say you can't fire Kyle Shanahan because he'd be hired the next
See, I
day.
don't say that.
Right?
I think there should be 20 head coach firings every year, and they should just start over. I think it'd be better. Maybe not. Bobo says low-key draft need is some better tacklers in the secondary. Wasn't it Kyle who mentioned the CBs and safeties help with run fits? This team used to have Ward, Tart, and K1 that were good at that. True. They also need linebackers. You saw what Dre Greenlaw did for this defense.
I think Demo and Malik are great tacklers in the secondary. They got some holes to fill there though.
Sean Shepard says it seems we are watching a slow road to self-destruction. Moody is poster boy for that. Salah seems like an almost hire, almost good enough D to win. Kyle can't even keep players healthy, let alone play the best. There is that. Thank you, Sean.
Are we going to get it's January 20th and Jake Moody's still on the 49ers?
How is he still here? I don't understand. The Niners are messing around. They're really messing around. Sean says we need to poach an up-and-coming college DC that will be here 3 years. Grant, why don't my $4.99 super chats go through? You don't want my $5? They don't?
That's
what?
Weird.
Huh? What you talking about?
We see some in the chat.
Wow, that's so interesting. Hold on, my bad. I'm so sorry. Usually they just
There's
get
a lot of them in
like
there,
starred and put in a separate thing.
You got $1.99 ones in there, so I don't know.
I'm so sorry. Hold on, let me like go through them real quick. Damn, we got Sean there. Jesus Jaime. Why am I missing these? Joey Lappin, Kovia, HR, the Jedi. I'm not seeing it.
I don't see it either.
Got these. I don't know, man. I don't see them.
Deshaun DeVoe, the last super chat.
Maybe it's just it's probably the last one. Okay. Deshaun DeVoe says, yeah, that's my cousin.
Is that really your cousin? Belbit DeVoe, is that really your cousin? That's crazy.
My cousin too.
I spent a lot of days in the early 80s dancing in the late 80s to Belbit DeVoe.
All right, hold on. I got to get out of here soon. We want to do sleeper picks in a minute, but this was interesting. Yesterday on Twitter, Diamador Lenore posted 2:37 p.m. on January 19th. Max Crosby would look crazy in a Niners jersey with a fire emoji. Now, he spelled it M-A-X. So maybe this is a different Max Crosby who's just like a family friend and he's going to get him like a Diamador Lenore jersey for his birthday. Or he's talking about the all-pro defensive end for the Raiders who seems a little disgruntled. Not quite gruntled. Can you be gruntled? He seems a little disgruntled with his situation on the Raiders because he's like one of two good players on that team. Do you think Lenore just said that? Do you think I think he probably just said that. But anyway, what do you think of his idea?
Well, I said it last year during free agency. Like I said it before the trade deadline that that's who I wanted for 49ers to get. It seems a little bit ridiculous, and the Raiders have said they're not going to trade Max Crosby, but that's who I wanted. So I'd be 100% down. I mean, him and Bosa on the same line together would be amazing. He's better than Nick Bosa by a large margin, in my opinion. So yeah, it'd be fantastic. Why he said that at this point in time, I'm not sure, but whoever goes in there with the Raiders, you would have to offer me a whole lot to get rid of Max Crosby right now because they're going to be rebuilding. I have a feeling it feels like Ben Johnson's going to be running the Raiders. So we'll see what Ben Johnson wants to do, but I wouldn't move from him. But I like the idea, Demo. I'm down too, bro.
Yeah, I'm talking about Ben Johnson in a second, but I do think the idea of bringing in Max Crosby is interesting because I don't know if they can afford it. It seems like if you bring in Max Crosby, that's telling Brock Purdy, "Hey, Brock, we're gonna need to see another year from you." We turns out we don't have $300 million for you, but we do have a lot of money for this DN who's going to make your job easier. You're not going to be getting paid per se, but you will be winning.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. And again, I do think he's a lot better than Nick Bosa.
Yeah, he is, man. His motor is ridiculous. Like he never even comes off the field, and it seems like he never gets tired. And then he'll smoke a blunt in the locker room after the game. The guy's nuts, man.
Yeah, it seems like if you don't get him, that he's going to go to a team that's going to be in your way. He could go to Washington. I mean, Washington is so scary right now. They're way ahead of schedule. They have no business being in the NFC Championship game. Everyone's going to want to play with Jaden Daniels. I mean, Brandon Ayuk saw it before anyone else saw it. A lot of people are going to be lining up. They're going to have cap space, and they're going to be way better the next couple years. They could get Max Crosby. So, yeah, I don't know. The Niners need to get past this idea that all they need to do is get healthy. No, you've gotten passed up. You need to find ways to get better. They're talking about they got $50 million in cap space. So what? You're just going to spend it on your players. You got to go out and get someone else. Who is it? The last time you tried it was Hargrave. It's not good enough.
Look, can you imagine being a Cowboys fan now, right? Like you're in the same position as the Niners, haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. And now in your division, they just got Jaden Daniels, and the Commanders are suddenly a factor. And you got the Eagles. Like, good luck, Cowboys fans.
Giants fans. How about Giants fans? What's the point?
It's always been a thing. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's do some sleeper. No, hold on, that's not the right sleeper one. I always mess up the sleeper pick. Boom. Boom. And wait. Oh, man. Boom. Okay. It's time for NFC Championship, AFC Championship sleeper. Washington, Philly. Jaden Daniels. Pass yards, rush yards. Pass yards, rush yards.
Where's the game? It's in Philadelphia, right? And Eagles.
Yep.
Probably gonna be snowing.
Could be.
Gonna be snowing. What about completion percentage? Do they have completion percentage or just completion totals?
They have pass attempts and completions, but one or the other.
Yeah, it's gonna be. This is a tough one because if it's snowing,
how about fewer than 21.5 completions? Do you feel good about that?
Yeah, that sounds good actually.
What about attempts? 32.5 attempts.
Yeah, I would say go under. I say go under that.
Attempts. Okay, yeah. Because if it's snowing, then it's a run game. Okay, Hurts. Jalen Hurts. He might be injured. What do you want? Pass yards, rush yards, pass TDs.
Yep. What are the pass TDs? Is it half or is it 1.5?
1.5. I don't like that.
I go under.
Yeah. Good call. What about Barkley? What? Rushing yards. 124. 124.5.
That's an insane mark. But what's crazy is he might actually hit it. What's his anytime touchdown?
He's hit it 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It's an insane mark.
You really want to bet against Saquon Barkley right now?
124 is bonkers, but go ahead, man. What is the anytime touchdown on it?
We can't. They're not going to let me do that one for whatever. But we could do rushing attempts. 24.5.
Yeah.
Receptions. 2.5.
I do rushing attempts over on the rushing attempts.
Yeah, because it's the NFC Championship game. They're not going to hold back.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen.
Joshua.
What you like for Josh? I was talking about this the other day. Did you ever notice that Joshua's and often like slip back and forth? They'd be like, "Hey, I'm Josh," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna keep a mental note." He goes by Josh, and then like a month later, like, "Hey, it's Joshua." I'm like, "Wait a second, you're a Josh. You're messing with me." They kind of slip back and forth. I don't like it.
Matt and Matthews.
Matts do it too all the time. I'm just like, wait,
Yeah,
am I losing my mind? Yeah.
Damn, Matthews.
Joshua Allen.
Go over on that.
On the passing touchdowns?
Yeah.
What if it's what? Oh, but it's gonna be Kansas City.
Josh Allen, bro.
Passing touchdowns?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, you say it with certainty, so I'm going with it. Mahomes. Yards, 250.
I think it's going to
rushing
be
yards, 25.
This is going to be a shootout, in my opinion. They're going to. Okay. I'm going over on pretty much everything for this one.
Okay. All right. Let's stick to that. Those are the 5 picks. Flex them. Submit the entry. Boom. Download the Sleeper app yourself today. Use promo code Cohn, COHN. Get entered to win this really nice. Oh, wait. Hold on. George Kittle jersey over here that was underneath my bathrobe. But it's clean, and it's never been worn, and he signed it. So that's what's going on. Ryan?
Is the bathrobe clean, though?
Yes.
Hey, if anyone wants
we've been doing this for an hour. We had more things to talk about, but I think we ran out of time, and I think we got to keep them wanting more. So
let me plug this one thing, if you don't mind, sir.
Sure.
Grant, I switched my channel. It's no longer 49 exclusive content. I'm doing a bunch of different things, and Grant is going to be my first guest. I'm going to be the uncut Grant Cohn interview you've always wanted. Make sure you subscribe.
Yep, tomorrow. Gonna be there. Ryan, great show. Thank you very much. Everyone,
buddy.
Have a great day and be safe.